Thanks, guys. I'm Sarah Westbrook. I'm so glad that you're here to join me this morning. Here are the props that you need. We have a pillow of any sort. I'm using a green meditation pillow, but it's not necessary to have something that formal. Anything that has a little bit of weight to it, so when we place it on the belly, it feels soothing and good. A yoga blanket is great, but not necessary. You can use a bath towel or a throw towel. And then we need a washcloth. So this will be, as we did on Wednesday, we covered the eyes with this, and we used the heels of the hands on top of the washcloth against closed eyes. So that's the purpose of the washcloth. So if you need to go ahead and grab that, some sort of a pillow, some sort of a blanket, and a washcloth. I like sitting up against the wall. I recommend that as a practice for you. If your mat is set up in such a way that you can't get to a wall, that's all right. We'll use the back of a sofa, maybe finding some edge to sit against. So noticing whatever parts of you touch the wall or the surface behind you. It's especially helpful to notice if the low back is touching the wall or not. If it's touching the wall pretty heavily and you notice that your pelvis is a little farther away from the wall than your spine, I'd rather you sit up on some more height. And then once you're sitting up on the blanket, lean forward. This is only if your low back was touching the wall easily. People who have an arch there don't need to do this. But if you are adjusting now and getting more height, lean forward, reach underneath the buttocks, right? Take the buttock skin out to the side and then come back upright and you'll feel, okay, I can get some fingers behind the low back. The back of the pelvis, the lower half of the pelvis is touching the wall. Your head does not have to touch the wall. Don't worry about it. Don't force it back if the chin is up. And close your eyes. And slow your breath. And you're feeling the movement of the breath in the body without trying to change it, without trying to force it. You don't even need to do the ujjayi breath right now. Well, let's take a falling out breath. That's an inhale through your nose and an exhale through an open mouth. Add some sound for added benefit. Noticing as we repeat this again, notice the inhale that happens after that open mouthed falling out breath. Notice if it's brought the sensation of the movement that inhaling creates. Notice if that sensation has traveled a little lower to the belly. And let's turn the palms down, please. And we're doing that to limit the amount that's coming at us. Palms up is like, come on world, like give it to me. But I have a feeling we're all not quite in that space anymore. We're a little bit more in like, I need to remember who I am separate from all of that. And palms down helps that energetically. Underneath your hands, feel the texture of your skin or your yoga pants or your pajamas. And let the steady stillness of the hands against the legs replicate the steady stillness of your seat against the floor, your back against the wall. And you're becoming immovable like a statue. Imagine you're anchored deeply into this stillness. The rest of the world gets farther and farther away. And your stillness it enacts an invisible force field around you. That might just be like 1 foot around you. It might feel like it's starting to grow 2 feet away from you, 5 feet away from you. You can make this zone of impenetrability as wide as you'd like around you. And imagine that it is an entire bubble around you. So it's not just around you on the floor, it encapsulates you in this beautiful, nicely colored bubble. And you are as still as the Buddha inside this bubble. And you'll take an inventory of how many yeses you're feeling in your life right now and how many nos. So most of us are saying, we've been forced into quite a few no's, like, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, you can't go here, etc. We all know that. And then, but we may have also, on top of those new restrictions, taken on quite a few yeses, like, yes, I'll help you do this, yes, I'll take over that, yes, I'll manage this, yes, right? And it's sort of like, not only are you dealing with a whole new situation, you've also taken on new tasks. You've also doubled or tripled the demand on your nervous system. And so you're invited now to let all of that be outside of your bubble. And life as it is in this moment, you're going to imagine what it would be like, and maybe even start to sense or feel, what would it be like if you simply accepted the situation as it is? Accept the entire situation as it is. This is what yogis have discovered over millennia, that resistance to what is what causes suffering. So they make this distinction between pain and suffering. And yes, there are realities out there. Yes, sometimes they cause pain. But what the mind of humans tends to do is layer on to the base experience, the base situation, with resistance. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to have to stay inside. I don't want to have to not touch my face. I can't, right? And all of these no's, I can't. And we're resisting it. And all of this resistance creates a state in our nervous system of unease and this fight or flight response that we can feel. We can feel as a curdling in the stomach, a tightness in the stomach or in the chest, right? As anxiety. And so you're invited to release the resistance and let this new reality as it is in the moment today simply be. There's nothing you need to do to engage with it at all. Notice any resistance to uncertainty. Accept the uncertainty, because that's the rule of life. That's the way things always are. There's some degree of uncertainty. And when you become aware of a particular feeling inside of you, right, that you could label as negative or positive, you're invited to feel that feeling. Even if you're resisting what I'm saying, you could notice the resistance as a physical feeling inside of you and realize that there's also a part of you that's observing that resistance. And once you make that separation, once you say, well, there's a part of me that watches myself resisting situations, you've disidentified with that resistance. And this is the gateway to presence. This is the gateway to the now, where things are simpler, less emotionally charged. The very nature of being in the simplicity of the now is that the wide open future is way out there. It's nothing that we're trying to plan, dissect, take apart, right? Wonder about. It's an illusion. What's real is right now, sitting here, feeling yourself breathe, watching, observing, being aware. Now bring your hands into a bowl-like shape. And in this bowl, you'll hold the feeling of not resisting. You're going to hold the feeling of your awareness, of presence. If you felt a shift of a little bit of ease, even if it was just 1 to 5%, you're taking up that precious liquid in the bowl of your hands. And use your breath to draw that feeling more into the body, using the inhale to feel that sensation spread through the body. A sensation of acceptance, ease, presence. And then bring the hands together at heart center, bow your head, and release your hands. All right, let's shift to table pose on your mat. Having this padded, softer surface under the knees is great. Hands in front of the shoulders. And let's start small today. Start with slow, small movement. The eyes are closed unless you need to see what I'm doing. All right, but otherwise you're in your body and you're moving in slow motion. And these movements are informal, they're organic. There can be a gentle circling, the hips can move from side to side, the shoulders will undulate, one lowers, then it lifts, and the other one lowers. And free up your head to follow in response to this movement. And you're staying away from big, fast, swinging movements right now, just so that you can feel a little more. When you go a little slower, you'll actually have more engagement through the core and through the muscles. You'll feel a little bit more in your legs, and that's good. All right, imagine the spine as a whip, in the sense of like watching someone move a whip, where you've seen people hold ropes and you hold one end of the rope and then you kind of undulate it. We used to do that in gym class as kids. And so the handle of the rope is the tailbone. And so as you move your tailbone around, the rest of the spine moves in this sinuous kind of shape, undulating, responding. You're not cracking the whip. You're just playing with the shape. And the movement can get larger here now. You can be circling clockwise or counterclockwise, alternating as frequently or infrequently as you choose. You can be on fists if your wrists are sensitive. And then we'll find the midline. So looking now at the center line of your mat and aligning your nose and your throat and your sternum and your belly button and your pubic bone with that, we'll start to shift forward and back. And then as you start to go back towards your heels, the spine can take a rounder shape into child's pose. But not quite lingering there, shifting forward again, lifting the chin, feeling the midline of the mat, lifting the chin up, coming into a reasonable back bend for first thing in the morning, and then shifting back towards your heels into that rounded shape. Use your next inhale to slide forward again, chin up, throat long, and it's an exhale back, finding that more rounded head hanging shape. Keep going, following your breath, shifting forward and back. I'm watching some of you whose video I can see. Yeah, and you're noticing when you're shifting back, looking at the legs, are you shifted, are your knees shifted off to one side of the mat? Can you make them equidistant from the edges of the mat? And the hands are equidistant, so you're on the true midline. And this can start to become more of a rounded shape where from child's pose, you can sort of, it's like you're scraping your chin along the floor without actually doing it, staying as close as you can and lifting up and then rounding on your way back. It's an inhale to slide forward, shoulders moving towards your heels, and then rounding. As you go back, the shoulders float towards your hands gently. One more time, peeling forward and exhaling back, pointing the feet. Come into your child's pose. Instead of having your arms out in front of you, make a pillow with your hands, rest on your forehead. If the floor is too far away, stack your fists and then forehead to fist. Feel your stillness. Take your hands out in front of you, push down into them, push into the shins, come back up to table. Hands in front of the shoulders again. This time the arms will stay straight and the rib cage will sink towards the floor. The shoulder blades are narrow on the back as you do this, and then push the floor away. The rib cage floats up towards the ceiling. You can use an inhale to slide the shoulder blades together. Rib cage gets closer to the floor. Exhale, push the floor away, broaden the upper back. And so this is tricky because sometimes the scapula, the shoulder blades don't want to move, and you'll find your elbows bending and straightening. Resist that urge if you can. And if it's still tricky to find this movement, you could sit back on your heels for a moment, reach your arms out in front of you, reach the arms out straight. You'll feel the upper back broaden, and then draw the straight arms straight back, shoulder blades firm on the back and narrow. And so it's simply this movement, pushing, retracting, pushing away, retracting. A few more times in table. Great. Try the same thing in a plank with the knees down. So it's a modified plank. If the knees were up, it would be a full plank. See how this feels here to do the same scapular slide. The belly has to stay quite firm here. The butt would like to stick up, the back would like to arch, the shoulders would like to hunch. But as long as you keep a firm tone through the abdomen, that's less likely to happen. The shoulders will be happier. If this is too intense, you go back to table pose. Very good. And then walk your hands back. And we'll come up to a kneeling shape, like you're in camel pose. So the torso is perpendicular to the floor. And you'll roll left shoulder back and then bring that hand to the hip. And I want you to look at your shoulder head And some of you, you'll notice that even though the hand is on your hip and the elbow's behind you, the front of the shoulder head is more in line with your chest, not the middle of the body, not the back. So allowing your chest to turn to the left as much as it needs to, roll left shoulder back, feel the shoulder blade narrowing on your back. Now that may have turned you quite a bit. Now the job is to keep this shoulder back, take your right hand to the ribs and start to pull and turn the ribs until they face center again, straight ahead to the top of the mat. Breathing here. Good, and release. Second side, I'm going to turn around so you can see this side. I just put the hand on the hip. The shoulder head tends to go forward. It's natural, there's nothing wrong with that, but we are working on training these back muscles to be able to move the shoulder back. And a big part of what's doing that is the muscles that surround the shoulder blade. So feeling here that you can lift and roll the shoulder back. Take a look at it. It's really helpful to just see. Sometimes you feel like it's moved, but just your elbow is moved back and the shoulder head's still forward. Try widening the elbow forward a bit, then roll the shoulder back. You may even feel your chest turning to the right. Keep that shoulder back, narrow the elbow, left hand comes to the ribs, start to turn the rib cage so it faces straight ahead and square as your right shoulder stays back. This is going to be the harder side for many of you, especially if you have scoliosis, and this is the convex side of your thoracic curve. So feeling the differentiation here that your ribs can spiral left as the right shoulder stays back. Acquaint yourself with the firming of the shoulder blade on your back. If it's pinching, you're being a little too aggressive. Good, and then release. Tuck the toes under, sit back on the heels. Feel your breath. Feel the breath moving the rib cage, moving the collarbones, floating the shoulder blades. It's like the area under the armpits widens and broadens with each inhale. Very good. Okay, make your way to standing, please. And we'll take both arms into our bat wing position. So the palms are facing out behind you. The back of the hand is fairly low. So we're not trying to go really high. Even if you can, I want you to stay low around the pelvic area. Some of you might even have to go lower or wider so that there's no pinching at the front of the shoulder. No pinching in yoga, we always say that, right? So with the elbows out to the side like a bat, we're noticing, looking at where the shoulder head lands. And for most of us, the nature of the arm position will have that shoulder head forward. Push the backs of the hands into the pelvis as you lift the chest and roll the shoulder heads back. And both shoulder heads are working back. Chest is lifting, and for many of you, this position is possible because the rib cage has pushed forward. So now adding what we've learned over the last two classes, right? If you're just joining us, this is your first time practicing this, is moving the ribs back without letting the shoulder head come forward. And that's tricky, pulling shoulders back and working the ribs back in line with the rest of the torso. Check that your weight's in your heels. Check that your knees are unlocked. Breathe here. Feel the resistance in the body. Accept it. Accept the sensation in the body. Breathe into it and through it. As you accept it, you might find that one shoulder has more of an issue with what you're asking the body to do. And that's useful information. All right, release your arms. Let them just hang by your sides. Standing in Tadasana, mountain pose, feel your breath. Very good. Let's take your right hand, I like palm down, and the fingertips of that right hand are going to push into the waist. And so we're below the bones of the ribs, above the bone of the pelvis. The palm is down. If that doesn't feel good for you, you can turn palm up, see if that feels better. Again, the weight sinks to the heels, and there's a softness in the knee. And as you push right fingertips into the waist, your upper body starts to lean over to the left, and it brings you into a side bend. Now, to support that side bend so the sensation is not too intense in your flank, your left flank, imagine you're spreading the feet apart on the mat. So it's like the feet are trying to widen out to the side, but they're sticking on your floor or on the mat. And that isometric action gives you a little bit of stability here. Start to let the head line up with the rest of you, right? So it's not leaning forward. And feel the whole spine taking on a side bend, C-curve shape. To bring yourself upright, push down and apart through the feet. Release that hand. Feel your breath. Feel the difference between the breathing on the right side of the body and the left. Great. For the second side, we'll take the left hand. I like palm down. You can do palm up. Make sure you're below the bony ribs and the bony top of the pelvis. And with the knees unlocked, weight in your heels, head back, and start to push sideways into the waist. Feel the upper body starting to lean. And the moment it feels like too much sensation through your flank, work your feet down and isometrically apart. Which side is more intense for you? Could you orient the tailbone so instead of it facing your right heel, it's facing in, it's lined up in between the two sit bones. Feel how that forces the lumbar spine to side bend when you don't let the hips shift out to your right. The hips are shifting isometrically left. Tailbone centered between the heels. And then drive the heels down and apart. That brings you upright fairly effortlessly, using your hip muscles instead of your waist. Feel the breath now. And remember that bubble that you set up when we first started, does it feel larger? Right, mine feels like 15, 20 feet large now. It started out smaller. Notice how much of your orientation is to the present moment, right? 95, 98, 99% right here. How does that feel compared to when your attention is shifted to an imaginary future or remembering the past? All right, you guys, we're gonna go back to the first side. Soften the knees, weight in the heels, and the fingertips dive into the waist. As you do that and the upper body starts to lean over to your right, the hips like to kick out to the left. I want you to resist that. So shift the hips to the right. The feet have to drive down and push apart. To accentuate that, let the head go. All right, square your shoulders and your hips. And then the free hand that's not doing anything, I want you to bend that at the elbow, bringing the thumb more or less to the front of the shoulder. For some of you, it'll be closer to the armpit. And I want you to slide that elbow towards the front body so the elbow is not behind you. So you're bringing the elbow forward and the shoulder head back, and then slide that upper arm right alongside the face, straightening the arm any amount. This is more demand, more work for these muscles. And if it's too much, your hips have probably shifted way out to the left. Shift your hips right. Shift the hips right. Feel the difference, feel the support, feet pushing down and apart. You're going to do that same foot action to bring you upright. Release both arms, close your eyes, breathe and feel. right, so the second side, fingers come into the waist, rock your weight to your heels, soften the knees, and start to side bend. And you might even feel your hips bump into the opposite hand. Don't let that happen. So we're sending the hips left, the feet push down and apart as you side bend. My body likes to lean forward and hinge forward at this point. I'm going to lean back as though I'm touching a wall. Let my head go. See how that is, because you're letting the big muscles of the buttock and the hip, and the thighs and the legs as they push down and apart. That's letting those big muscles support the weight of the trunk. Bend your free arm at the elbow. Make sure the elbow is in line with your chest, not your back body. Slide that arm as close to the face as you can. This is like a side angle arm. It's a downward dog arm. It's a warrior one arm. So it's not rolling open with your palm facing forward. The palm is facing the floor and the arm is really close to your face. Don't let the hips sneak out to the right. Slide them left, feet drive down and apart. Inhale, come up. Exhale, go the arms. Your breath should feel longer, taller. The rings of the ribs are separating. It feels as though they're separating. There's this sense of the accordion. We talked about this accordion on Wednesday, an imaginary accordion inside the ribs. Right, the lungs that are the lungs themselves, right? And the ribs mirror this. This bottom hand here at the bottom of the rib cage, top hand out at the collarbones. On your inhale, the hands move apart. Bottom hand is showing what this diaphragm muscle is doing. So there's a sense that the whole torso is getting longer with the inhale, and it all compresses with your exhale. Very good. Okay, so let's take a wide stance. And we're setting up for a side angle pose. So we'll turn the right foot out 90 degrees. I like to have the back foot, the back heel, not so much in line with the front heel, but actually in the view that you're seeing, my back leg is closer to the camera. So this is not traditional cueing, and you can see if that works for you. Okay, so let's take the hands to the hips. Just the act of turning this front leg out 90 degrees. This is your right leg that's turned out and the front leg. The pelvis has turned and oriented itself to the right. And that's fine. That's good. Squaring the hips will either bring that front knee in or it'll kind of pop out your sacrum. So we're letting the pelvis be oblique, a little off at an angle here. Take an inhale. As you exhale, bend into the front knee. And notice if you start to lunge forward over that front knee. Push both feet down and apart isometrically. That brings you up. And if you noticed yourself kind of lunging and leaning over that front leg, your torso no longer staying vertical, I want you to drive that front heel into the mat a little bit more. So it's kind of saying no to the pelvis just, right, swooping towards the front foot. So as you bend into the front knee now, your front heel, your right heel is saying no, no, stop, slow down, don't come as far. You might notice that now you feel more sensation in the inner thigh, which is one of the releases, one of the intentions of the pose. Very good. And then although the pelvis is turned towards the front leg, we're going to lift the ribs and turn slightly towards the back leg with the ribs. So just the rib cage is square, not the hips. Very good. Now we'll take that left hand, similar to what we did with our side bend, and we're going to slide the left arm alongside the ear and start to tip over towards the front leg. We're going to go with this very slow. In a minute, you can just go straight to the floor. The idea is to get strong and capable at all these ranges of motion, instead of just diving to the deepest point, waiting for your hand to be able to support you. So you might stay here. You might feel that you can start to go a little lower. If the sensation goes into the front hip crease, your hips have probably shifted back towards your back foot. So again, in order to contain and support the trunk, the hips have to shift a little bit isometrically towards the front leg. Right? Finding that pose. Some of you can float that bottom arm. Same idea. Elbow bends, elbow forward, slide and reach both arms alongside the ears. This is a lot of work. Push the feet down and apart. Feel how that brings you up without straining the flank. Orient your feet so they face straight ahead, heel toe, or even hop the feet together. Close your eyes, feel and breathe. Take off a layer. Okay, noticing in particular what happened through the left side of the body here. Might feel longer. The breath might move more fluidly. All right, second side, so the left foot turns out 90 degrees, the back foot turns in slightly. That's just more for those of you who both feet like to turn out a lot. Just turns in slightly. If you're flexible, don't go all the way, okay? You go straight ahead with that back foot. And again, my feet are staggered, so my back leg is closer to the camera. You can see if that works for you. Check your pelvis. Your pelvis is already turning slightly towards the front leg. That's great. Just go ahead and bend into the knee. And when you go in, the tendency is for the knee to go way past the ankle for many of you. And gravity just goes whoosh. And it collapses the pressure onto the hip, to the knee that's forward of the ankle, right, into even the ankle or even the toes. You might notice your toes grip in response. Push the feet down and apart. That'll straighten the front leg. This time we'll go in a little bit differently. Hands on the hips. As you go in, it's like you're pushing your heel onto the floor and you're saying like, no, no, slow down, pelvis. Slow down, slow down. Resisting the pelvis, shooting forward. And if you feel an inner thigh stretch come into the pose, great. All right, you've made a good adjustment there. All right, let's bend the right arm. The fingertips come somewhere in this zone of armpit, maybe even at the top of the shoulder, so that the elbow is not behind you. The elbow's in line with the front body. And we'll take that arm alongside the ear and incrementally practice challenging ourselves with gravity. Now you might find that as you start to lean over, the front leg's like, ah, it's working. It works more of the weight of the trunk goes there. The back leg gets so light. To counter that, I want now the pelvis pushes towards the front leg slightly instead of letting it kick way out behind, right? Resist that slightly. So this is kind of calibrating where the pelvis is, just like in the beginning where we kind of moved the hips from side to side. We moved the handle of the whip to create the undulation in the spine. You're feeling that calibration here. And if both feet push down and apart, you can feel the outer hips kick in, which helps the inner thighs release. Added bonus here is to take the bottom arm up alongside the ears, downward dog arm. This is a warrior one arm. 2 more breaths. Push the feet down and apart, straightening the front leg. Release your arms, heel toe your feet together or hop to bring them back. Feel the change that you've made in your breath. Close your eyes. Rock your way to your heels, soften the knees. Okay, great. Let's come back to open eyes and step the feet apart again. Let's go back to our first side, which is the right leg is the front leg. Drive the heel, front heel into the floor. You can even pick the front of the foot up if your balance allows, so that as you come into the pose, you're not losing sensation, effort through the back leg. The back leg to me always looks like a kickstand on a bike. And I kind of want that feeling like if your torso's the bike, this back leg is just as legitimately a kickstand, right? Helping balance you, helping you keep upright. So this is now Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. We're gonna try something different with the arms, see if it works for you. So we'll take the palms, arms down in front of you, palms are facing you, the back of the hand is facing forward. And you're gonna cross the arms in front, doesn't matter which one, and it's like you're taking off your shirt. It's like you're taking off a heavy sweater. You're lifting it overhead, palms start to face forward, and then arms open out to the side. Like it's spring. Let's try that again. We're crossing the arms in front, palms face you there. Imagine you're grabbing your sweater, heavy sweater, palms now switch to face forward when they get about to the level of the face. And then, it's spring, fewer layers. One more time. Push the feet down and apart to straighten the front leg. Switch your legs to the other side. Adjust the feet so that the back foot's a little closer to the camera, right? So the feet are closer to hip distance apart, not heel to heel or heel to arch, if that modification works for you. So the idea behind the shoulder action as you stand with your stance here, the idea with the palms facing back is the arms are internally rotated, right? They've rolled in. That allows us to bypass some of the tightness, the restrictions, even the injuries in the rotator cuff, so that we can then move the shoulders back as you lift the arms. The palms rotate to face out. Now we're getting closer to external rotation. The shoulders back in the socket more effortlessly, and the arms float out. Okay? So we're bending into the front knee, drive the heel into the floor, feeling the back leg stays energized. You don't just drop it and let it go. Orient your rib cage towards square and straight ahead towards the long edge of your mat. And then here we go. Arms in front of you, palms face you, back of the hand towards the front. And then we cross the arms, feel that internal rotation, drawing the shoulders back, palms turn out. Again, crossing the arms. Again. And last time, maybe with the opposite arm in front. Very good. Drive both heels down into the mat. That'll straighten the front leg. Release the arms, heel toe, the feet together, or hop. All right, feel what's changed in the body for you. With all the open leg stances and those inner thigh releases, the pelvic floor might feel different. Right? And you might feel that the pelvic floor can receive the breath. The pelvic floor subtly, right? For some of you almost imperceptibly, some of you it's like, I don't feel that at all, right? But over time, you'll feel that with the inhale, the pelvic floor releases down. And then the exhale, there's that subtle pull and lift back up. All right, great. Let's turn to face the front of the mat, and we'll start in a lunge with the right leg forward. I'm going to show you from this view, facing the camera, just so you guys can see, but you can be oriented towards the top of your mat. So the right leg is forward and the left leg is back. And you'll notice that we worked on this in the last class, that your eyes are in line with the front heel. Tendency is to have your eyes centered or even leaning over the back leg, and that makes that front hip kick way out. You could see that by looking down, and it makes the knee cut in, right, which is a strain on the knee, strain in the groin, strain on the sacrum. So the upper body actually shifts towards the front leg, and you'll see that your hips, your pelvis just swings over towards the back leg. All right, cut your left heel down and in for that warrior one stance. The feet push down and apart. Push into your hands just a little bit, just enough to feel the belly tone. And then once it's toned, start to bring the torso more upright. Holding the pose, I'm going to show you, you're staying in at the same side. I'm showing you now from the side view. Right? You can kind of lean into the front leg, push the front foot into the floor, shift towards the back leg. You can kind of find that push-pull that the front leg's saying move back and the back leg's saying move forward. And then I want them to kind of cancel each other out so the hips can start to lower down a little bit more. What we don't want is for the legs to relax. All your sensation will then transfer to the groin, which is a tricky and bad area to stretch. So pushing the feet down and apart, feeling the glutes turn on, the thighs turn on, hamstrings, all the legs are working. Your chest lifts and rotates towards your front leg, even as the pelvis stays slightly turned towards your back leg. That's not classical cueing. See how it works for you today. Arms reach out in front of you, palms out, thumbs are down. That's internal rotation. Draw your shoulders back, push imaginary heavy curtains open, and then spiral the entire arm inwards so the palms are facing each other and your arms are reaching up. Virabhadrasana 1. You can try that again. Reach the arms forward at shoulder height, maybe even a little higher. Thumbs down, palms out. As you stay toned through the belly, draw the shoulders back into the socket. Feel them slide back. Push imaginary heavy curtains open. Then spiral the palms and the arms. Palms face each other, arms are lifting overhead now. Breathing here. Very good. Lean forward, lift the back heel, bend the back knee, and with your hands on your front thigh, push off so you come up to standing at the top of the mat. Breathe and feel. And the breath will be taking more of a spiraling route through the body. See if you can track that, feel that. You'll feel it more clearly if the knees are unlocked and the weight's in the heels. All right, so for the second side, I'm showing you again from the front view, but you just stay where you are, oriented towards the front of your mat. Left leg is forward, and as you lean your hands onto the front leg and you push down, it turns on the core, the belly for you. And I want you to check and see that your eyes are oriented on either side of the front foot. And when that happens, your front leg will be parallel to the long edge of your mat. All right, and if the head is off to the middle here, your hips start to go off to the side, the thigh is no longer parallel to the long edge of the mat. And some of you might even have a habit of having your head in line with the back foot. So you can try all three of those positions out, end up with the head in line with the front heel. Okay, and we had worked on this on Wednesday, stepping the foot forward and back. So you can come into that full lunge, cut the heel in and down for that Virabhadrasana 1 stance, which is outer hip distance apart with the feet, not heel to heel. Okay, so I'll show you now from the side view. Left leg is the front leg, right leg is back. Inner heel is cutting down, and the outer back heel is pushing down. So you can notice if you roll some weight to that outer back heel and push down, it turns on the back leg glute, which will help release the hip flexors of the back leg. And pushing down your hands will tone your abdominals, which will also release the hip flexors a little better. Start to bring your torso to vertical as you shift your weight, forward, the outer back heel gets light. And as you push the front foot into the ground, the front leg tends to straighten. Do both actions, so neither leg wins, and the outer back heel stays down firmly. Pushing both feet down and apart, scissoring open action here. Pelvis is turned slightly towards your back leg. Manually lift your ribs, spin them towards your front leg, which is slightly to the left. And then arms out in front of you, just above shoulder height, palms out, thumbs down. Tone the tummy as you draw the shoulders back in the socket. Push imaginary heavy curtains open and then spiral the arms up. Virabhadrasana 1. Again, with the arms just above shoulder height, palms out, thumbs down. Tone the tummy as you draw the shoulders back. Push heavy curtains open, spiral the arms up, reach up, look up. And then release the arms down, lean forward. Both hands come to your front thigh. Lift the back heel, bend the back knee. Let it get a little push, a little bounce through it until it can launch you forward into an Utkatasana chair pose. Separate the hands. We have one hand on each thigh. Sit down into the pose. As you push down with your hands, we have that internal rotation of the arms again, which will help you draw your shoulders back. Showing it from the side view. The elbows are out like that bat wing shape. That internal rotation allows you to more safely and without tension draw the shoulders back. Release the arms forward and alongside the ears. Sit low. 3 more breaths. Release the hands down to the floor. Come to table. On hands and knees, bend the elbows out to the side. It's a similar bat wing shape. And then imagine, I'll show you from the front view. You don't have to move, right? Bending the elbows out to the side, that internal rotation helps you set the shoulder back in the socket a little more, then squeeze the elbows in. It's almost like you're picking up a beach ball between your elbows and holding it there. Again, the action, the palms can turn, the fingers can turn in, elbows out to the side. Set the shoulder into the socket a little more firmly. Feel some tone through the shoulder blade. And then squeeze the elbows in. The hands will end up pointing straight ahead or even turning slightly out. Maintaining that, come to your downward facing dog. Very good. Slowing the breath in downward facing dog. I'm watching some of you on the camera here. Watching the belly hollow, feel the belly hollow with the exhale. From downward facing dog, shift forward into your plank pose. Set your knees down. So you're in that knee plank. The knees are up, it would be a full plank. The knees are down here. Turn the fingers slightly in. Again, we're using that internal rotation. The left hand will isometrically pull out to the left. It won't actually move. And the right hand will drag out to the right slightly. So pulling that out, feel how that helps the elbows bend. It tones the tricep. It tones the upper back. You'll feel the shoulder blades firm onto your back. And as you lower a little bit closer to the floor, don't go all the way, bow in, keep the belly up. Look ahead of the hands, maybe lower a little more. Hold, bow in, then look forward, keeping that tone, and then maybe all the way to the floor now. Sweep the arms in front of you into Sphinx. Elbows in front of the shoulders. Relaxing the spine here. Notice how it feels to just simply let the spine relax. Very good. Without lifting the elbows, I want you to push the hands into the floor, the forearms and the elbows down. Push down, bow in, look towards your navel. Feel your belly and your ribs come off the floor, but the pelvis stays down. Maintain that tone as you start to back bend. So the body will move closer to the floor, but you still feel that pushing down action. So you're not just relaxing the spine back down. Push down as you back bend. Some of you could even lift the elbows here, pushing into the hands. The hands can walk closer. If it starts to get pinchy in the low back, which is different than just tone, widen the elbows and then squeeze that imaginary beach ball, bow in, get the belly to work, and then lift the head again. You might even be able to walk the hands in a little closer, reaching out through the big toe of each foot, lengthening your cobra legs all the way back. If it gets pinchy, elbows out to the side, palms in, set the shoulder on your back, squeeze that imaginary beach ball between the elbows, and then lift the chest again. If you're fairly high, you can lift your chin and open your throat and breathe. On your last exhale, widen the elbows, hands turn in, resist the floor, push it away as you lower down. Make a pillow with your hands. Turn your head to one side, relax the legs and rest. I'm going to check the time. You continue to rest. All right, very good. From the belly, roll over onto your back. Rest on your back, feel your breath. Let the floor hold you as you imagine, sense, and feel the size of the sphere that your presence has created. Part of how we manage our internal feelings is by moving in a way where we have to focus on, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm doing it. And all of it is not so that you perfect the pose, but so that you perfect the training and the quality of your attention. And you may have found at certain points, I can't do all those layers, or I lost one part and I only did the first part, and that's fine, because it's the act of disciplining the attention, saying, stay here. Stay here. Stop going somewhere else. Stay right here with your attention and deeply embedded in the body, this deep knowing, intuitive trust in your tissue. So as you lie here, right, as you feel the body with the knees bent and the feet flat on the floor, you're just noticing the shift. How large is the present moment? And we'll take the right arm into a goalpost position. And if you have a shoulder injury and that position pops the shoulder up and it pops the wrist up, you'd be better off going to a straight arm. Let's do this. Let's do the bent arm, the goalpost, but turn the palm so that the fingers are oriented towards the ceiling. The palm is oriented towards your feet. So this is a little bit of internal rotation. And I want you to roll a little bit to your right, just a tiny amount, the knees and the trunk turn, and work that right shoulder into the floor. So this turning gives the shoulder a little bit of space so that you can draw the shoulder head down faster than the elbow. And some of you might feel like, well, I can push my elbow down. If you push just your elbow down, the shoulder head actually lifts up. So find the muscles that help you push the shoulder blade down, and the elbow actually gets lighter. You could even float the elbow up and the shoulder head stays down. So once you've got the shoulder head down, the elbow is light or even floating, roll back onto your back and you might feel, oh, well, now I'm actually getting a stretch in my pec and I didn't feel that before. And you didn't feel it before because your shoulder was forward and popping up. So now from keeping the shoulder down, feeling the sensation of stretch across the chest, you could then, if the shoulder's healthy and there's no pinching, rotate the arm in the socket so the back of the hand comes to the floor. If at any point going towards that, the shoulder head pops up and the elbow pushes down, I instead would want you to open the arm out to the side, which will still give you a stretch. So you're either with a straight arm and a T or in that goalpost, and then I want you to turn your head to the left. And this will introduce for many of you a strange, odd sensation, sometimes through the fingers, of a little bit of a nerve stretch. The nerves can get trapped in all that fascia and that tissue. And if you're like, this is good and this is pleasant and this is moderate, you can start to keep the right shoulder down and push into the feet to have the knees travel a little bit more to the left. And here's our twist. And the most important thing I want you to do is keep the right shoulder down. I don't want it to come up because your knees are so heavy they went to the floor. So the feet are resisting, the feet are holding the legs up somewhat. And the head is turned left. We know that's not traditional, but we're doing it here. And breathe. And push into your feet, come back to center, release the arms by your side, release both legs, breathe and feel. And you may feel a feeling of clarity and release through the right side of your neck, down the whole length of the arm, even down the right side body. Bend the knees, feet to the floor again. This time we'll do the left arm. I'm going to turn around so you can see me in the camera, but of course you can stay exactly as you are. And so we're starting with a goalpost arm with the fingertips to the ceiling and the palms facing the feet. And this is a position of relative internal rotation of the arm bone in the shoulder socket, which turns off a lot of the rotator cuff muscles, often which are injured, frayed, dysfunctional, not working. And in this position, I want you to push the left shoulder to the floor. You may have to roll a little left to find that. And could you work the left shoulder down and to the point where the left elbow floats up? Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. You're feeling that. Once you can get the broad, flat surface of that left shoulder blade on the floor and the shoulder head is down, you can even use your right hand to help the skin of the chest roll towards the top of the left shoulder. Once you've got that, start to square the hips. There's that nerve stretch for me on this side. Square the rib cage. So the rib cage starts to lie flat. This side is harder for me. Often the non-dominant arm is actually tighter, which can be surprising. But your truth is your truth, the experience in your body. So I'm going to keep my right hand here on my left shoulder, flowing, dragging the skin towards the top of the shoulder. It's just so that I know that I'm working the correct action, and I'm slowly turning my head to the right, and the nerve stretch is intensifying. And so all of you are invited to stop at the point where if you go past a moderate sensation and into something that's too strong, I want you to back off, right? And just play that edge where it's moderate. And if the hand goes numb, right, you come back to center, right? And you're not going as deep. And from here, you either rotate the entire arm so the back of the hand comes to the floor and you're in that goalpost, or the arm might release into a T. I'm actually getting a better stretch with my arms straight out in a T. It's up to you. I'm working that left shoulder down. I'm keeping the elbow light. And optional here, again, adding on. You're not losing anything if you're already at intense. But if you're not at intense, push into your feet. The knees tip right. The head is turned right. It's not a traditional head position for the twist, but give it a try. The point of integrity for the entire twist is that the back of the left outer shoulder blade stays on the floor. And as you breathe, especially if those right fingertips are there by the shoulder, by the front of the chest, if you can feel the chest swell up under your fingertips, if you feel this collarbone area elevate with the breath, congratulations. This is huge. The feet are active, pushing into the floor. The legs are not slack and heavy. This is an active position. One more full breath all the way to those fingertips. And then push into your feet. Come back to center. And adjust yourself so your whole body feels centered. Pause. And create a little arch by pulling back isometrically through your feet. There's going to be a little space under your low back, your butt's still on the floor, and then you're going to flatten the back by pushing and driving your heels away from you. And then do that pelvic tilt a few more times with the breath. It's an inhale when the back arches. It's an exhale as it lowers closer to the floor. Okay, now we'll lean right, tuck left shoulder under, lean left, tuck right shoulder under, pull back through the feet, get a little arch in the low back, so the back is toning. And then those of you who, if it pinches or this feels too aggressive, you could push the heels away from you a little bit and moderate that with some tone through the abdominals. And then without tucking the pelvis, lift up into the bridge. As you get higher, you're gonna have to lean to your right, tuck the left shoulder under, lean left, tuck the right shoulder under. Make sure you don't have a blanket under your head. Get rid of that if it's there. Chin can lift. Push into your feet, push into your shoulders, push into your triceps, your robot arms, fingertips to the ceiling. And then some of you can lift the heels up. Most back bends are done with pointing feet. You're gonna get the hips a lot higher and more release through the pelvis. And some of you will get to the point where if you've lifted the hips high enough, you could tuck the hands underneath the back of the pelvis. This is certainly more of a level 2 move, and don't worry if it's not happening today. But that hand position, don't lean the weight of the torso, the pelvis on the hands, that's cheating. You're using your back muscles and your legs to launch up, right? But you might stay here with the heels up. Some of you can keep the hips this high and stretch the heels down to the floor. You'll be graced with more of an inner thigh and quad stretch. Big intention in this pose. If you were able to get your hands under the pelvis, if you slide the hands towards your head, you get a little more arch. And if you slide the hands towards your tailbone, you soften and release some of that curve, which could be nice here in the pose. One more breath. See if you can maintain that height, releasing the arms. And then untuck the shoulders and flow down, one smooth motion, not rolling down. Free up the shoulders. If you feel a very, very strong need to hug your knees into your chest, do that. My back feels better with the back bend. I'm going to just release my legs straight. Some of that's just your anatomy. And once you release the legs straight, if you feel the back popping up into a very strong arch, go ahead and rebend the knees, hug the knees into the chest, massage the back. You might even do that for like 30 seconds to a minute if you need to, and then return to the legs straight. You can take as much time as you need. Here's when we can find our pillow and our washcloth if you're ready to set up for your Shavasana. Let me check the time. Okay. So for the Shavasana, if the chin is very high and it like feels hard to swallow, that's a good sign that you need a blanket under your head. If, however, the chin is buried close to the chest, just close to the throat rather, don't use the blanket. Many people don't need the blanket, okay? If you know you hyperextend through the knee, an alternative use for your blanket is to put it into a roll and put it underneath your knees. So nice if you can use your feet to kind of set that up. Your pillow, or anything with some weight to it, can now come to rest on the belly. And of course, if you're pregnant or trying to get pregnant, we'll skip this phase and you can just rest your hands on the belly. Okay, the washcloth, it can be folded into thirds, placed over the eyes. This will block out some light so you don't have to get up and turn off your lights. And also, it will help induce a deeper state of relaxation The body needs stillness. The body needs to be adequately warm. There needs to be quiet, and it needs to be dark. These are the conditions that help the body relax. And the neat thing about the washcloth is it also will give you a light pressure on the eyelids themselves. And to accentuate that, you're invited to take the heel of each hand and rest softly and gently the heel of each hand into the nook of the eye sockets. If it's comfortable to hold the arms in this position, you're invited to stay with the heel of the hands lightly resting on the eyes, and feel the eyes themselves dropping away from the eyelids, retreating back into the skull. Feel your brain retreating from the forehead, sinking towards the back of the skull. Imagine the brain shrinking away from the edges of the skull. The eyes too can deflate a little, and they're very soft. The whole inner body can retreat away from the edges of its container and soften. You've released all control of the breath. The breath now takes over, guiding you. You hold its hand, and it has a gentle, lulling quality, a gentle, rocking quality. It has a fluid, water-like quality. The sensation of the breath. I know the breath is small and slow here. It's so easy. Its fluidity, that water-like nature of the breath, helps the rest of the internal body sort of shift and slide. So you have a sense of the water-like quality of the inner body. The organs slide. They're not fixed. They move and respond to the breath. The lungs slide in the rib cage effortlessly, smoothly. Even the brain, right? Maybe we'll be sensitive enough to feel or imagine or sense the fluidity of the brain within the skull in response to the rhythm of the breath. The entire digestive system slides, moves with grace and ease. The pelvic organs, fluid. The kidneys, fluid. And what are the truths of your experience of yourself in this moment? What is real to you now?
You're invited to stay here in your Shavasana, saturating your body with the power of your stillness. Believe that it's powerful. Feel how different the feeling in the body is. Feel how soothing it is to be in the body. Feel how powerful it is to be oriented completely to the now. And stay here. Enjoy the rest of your time. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.